Also on the programme, the last moments of Teesside's final furnace as steel production comes to an end. For 150 years, they've been making steel in Redcar, but not anymore. Production at the Chorus factory there stopped at 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Its 1,600 workers now face a bleak future. Stephen Douglas spent the day with some of them as Redcar's long history of steelmaking came to an end.
After 150 years, this was the last iron ore ever to be made in Teesside. These pictures obtained by ITV News of the steel plant's blast furnace show the flickering embers of an institution that's provided for so many for so long. To look at the Chorus plant this morning, you wouldn't have known that history was about to end. But the workers arriving knew. They knew their lives in this landscape would never be the same again. Josh, like his mother and father, works at Chorus, but at 7 a.m. they began preparing for one of his final shifts.
It's very, very sad. I don't suppose we quite ever expected it would happen. I do feel very sad for him and not quite sure what tomorrow will bring and where we go after today.
I joined Josh on his journey to work, a journey he thought he'd make for the rest of his life.
Well, obviously it's quite a depressive day for me, knowing that, it might be my last day of work. It's very upsetting just to think about, the history over the years. It's all going to waste.
I think Teesside should be proud of itself for its history and its steel making. Thank you very much.
By 11 o'clock, hundreds had gathered outside the gates. They'd come to protest and mark the death of an industry they love. These are the faces of some of the 1,600 workers who are losing their livelihood. They stood alongside the community, young and old, that's relied on the Chorus plant for generations.
It means the death of my working career, as in black armband. 58-year-old, no chance of getting a job doing this and anywhere else in this area.
Well, it's now 4 o'clock, and after over a century, steel production here has officially ended. The process of cooling the huge blast furnace, so crucial for making steel, has begun. Up until now, there'd always been a glimmer of hope, and Chorus says it could reignite the furnace in the future. But workers fear that would prove far too expensive for it ever to happen. It was a new Teesside that Josh emerged to when his shift ended, an area that already has the second highest unemployment rate in the country.
I'm going to have to start looking for other college courses or possibly moving out the area. It's just quite upsetting, to be honest.
Teesside's steel industry died with the light of the day. It took with it generations of history and a defining symbol of this region. Well, when the shifts finished at Chorus tonight, a lot of workers came to social clubs like this, and the talk has been of nothing else, but not just amongst those workers, because this has a massive knock-on effect for thousands of others in this area that rely on the existence of the plant for their livelihoods. And what I've been hearing over and over again tonight is, with the decline of yet another heavy industry in this part of the country, just where are the jobs going to come from now?
Stephen Douglas and Teesside, thank you.
Good evening. It's the end of a long tradition of steelmaking in the northeast. The Chorus plant at Redcar is now being mothballed with the loss of 1,600 jobs. Thousands of steelworkers across the country will vote on strike action in protest against the mothballing of the site on Teesside. Our business correspondent Ian Reeves sent this report.
This was a wake, a demonstration and a celebration all rolled into one. Steelworkers and their families protesting at losing their jobs, but proud to be part of an industry that has sent its steel all around the world. It was also a time to think, what next?
Sit at home, watch the TV for a while, because they say a lot of people are going to be after a few jobs, and well, there's no work out there, so just going to be sat at home, I think. It's shocking.
Been here 35 years turned, 35 years gone October. I'm 56, and my biggest fear or question is what happens to me. I've got some transferable skills, I'm an electrician, but at 56, am I really marketable in today's economy?
And this is the man who mothballed the blast furnace, ending that long tradition on Teesside, in charge of the team that tonight is running it down.
I've been at the blast furnace for 31 years now, and in fact, in reality, I've looked after the blast furnace longer than I've looked after my own children, so it's a very difficult process that we're going through, but we'll do it very professionally because we owe it to the next generation of iron and steel makers to leave the blast furnace in very good condition.
These pictures show the process of drilling into the blast furnace, probably ending its life. Once it's mothballed, it will take millions of pounds to bring it back online, but the boss says it can be done.
I have to say there is a prospect that somebody could come in and make a credible bid. We are mothballing this plant. The plant is in good condition, and the market is improving, so that there is that prospect, and that's one of the reasons, or the main reason, why we're mothballing the plant and not closing it.
The band plainly didn't agree. A last post for Teesside Steel.
Ian Reeve reporting. Well, Vera Baird, the MP for Redcar, is hopeful the blast furnace could one day reopen.
Good, it can, and I'm assured not only by Chorus but also by the union, and I take strong reassurance from them, not only that it can be reopened practically, but that although there is a cost to it, it's not a prohibitive cost.
Is it not? I understand it would cost something like £50 million to reopen the blast furnace.
Well, I've also talked to the latest of the three would-be purchasers, and they are considering where in their bid they should allocate the cost of its reignition. So I'm assuming that they too regard it as both practical and not prohibitive to relight it.
And there's more on Chorus, past, present and future on the BBC Tees website.
Hello, welcome to the late edition of North East Tonight. 170 years of steelmaking in our region came to an end today as the last blast furnace was mothballed. 1,600 workers at Chorus on Teesside are now on the dole, but thousands more in the supply chain also join the search for an ever-decreasing number of jobs. Greg Easthill reports.
They played them out with the same hymn once heard on board the Titanic. After all, this was another steel giant people used to think was unsinkable, but not anymore. Hundreds turned out to see the end for themselves, many of them still wearing the helmets and the dirt their families have worn for generations.
Each and every worker on this site should hold his head up with pride for the years of service and the fabulous steel that each and every one of you guys have made.
Chorus and the government might be insisting that they can get this place back open again, but for the people that have gathered here in their numbers today, it feels far more like a funeral. It feels far more like the end.
It's the worst thing ever, isn't it? Generations and generations of Teessiders have worked here and lived here. When this goes, Middlesbrough's finished. Teesside, done, finished.
Gutted. I feel like I've lost someone.
The end of an era, really, isn't it? It's disgusting.
People here are angry and they're looking for someone to blame.
We've got, how many is it, 5 Labour MPs in this area. They think they're safe. I hope they're not. Vote for anyone, don't vote Labour.
People blame the government when things go wrong. I can't think, if anybody can think of anything I could have done I haven't, then you should ring me and I'll do it.
And while they mourned outside, inside the plants, workers were already starting to lay the last blast furnace here to rest. There used to be 40 of these along the Teesside coast. Now there's only one working, and tomorrow there'll be none. I spoke to the man supervising the shutdown. After 32 years here, it's the hardest thing he's had to do.
It's very difficult. I've worked at the blast furnace all my working career, and much of what we do with the blast furnace is to nurture and to care for it. That's been my working life. So yes, it's a great shame to see today come.
This is almost like a child for you, this furnace, isn't it?
I've looked after the blast furnace longer than I looked after my own children, so yeah.
It's a very sad day, and obviously my first thoughts are with everybody in the team out there, their families, the suppliers, contractors, because although this has been was announced back in May, they've had to live with that for the last 10 months.
Gladstone once dubbed Teesside's booming steel industry an infant Hercules, but it seems even gods can go under, and this one has. Greg Easthill on Teesside.
Workers across the country are to be balloted over whether to strike over the mothballing of the chorus plant at Redcar on Teesside. Up to 1,600 posts are to go. The company says it can't find a buyer.